Hey, thanks for picking me. I just want to be part of your world. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, and I also have really bad puns. So that's another reason to subscribe. So click that subscribe button and validate me, like you would validate your parking. And we're going to get into it. This is The Little Mermaid, the live action, sort of, remake. It's currently on Disney Plus, just dropped on Disney Plus, and the film does have audio description by Deluxe, narrated by Michelle Deco. So, I have a lot to say about this film. We're gonna drop right on in on The Little Mermaid. So what is this? Well, it's basically the same story you probably have already seen before in the original animated cartoon. It is the story of Ariel. It's just live action now. Halle Bailey plays Ariel, who has the same dreams animated Ariel did of one day growing up and being able to check out this fascinating world of humans who have legs and feet, and she meets this guy, Eric, played by Jonah Howard King in this film, and he is just so cute, and she goes just silly for his just good looks, and he's so nice and kind and boisterous and everything, and she just falls instantly in love with him. So of course she's willing to give up everything. However, her father, King Triton, played by Javier Bardem, does not approve, and the only way for her to get out is by making a deal with her aunt, the sea witch, Ursula, played by Melissa McCarthy. Along the way, she'll be helped by three of her friends: Flounder, a fish. It's really self-referential. It kind of makes you wonder if that flounder is named Flounder, what are the other flounder named? But he's played by Jacob Tremblay. Sebastian is a crab, and he's voiced by David Diggs. And then we have Scuttle, who's voiced by Aquafina. This is going to be a fun review. Okay, so, first of all, I should start off with some good things, because I actually did like this film, overall. And I've seen the raging debates online by, there's just a lot of people that think that what Disney is doing is useless and pointless, and I can see that. I see your side of the argument, that why did we make this film? It's a little too close to home. It's a little too close to the original. There isn't really that much new that's offered here. Some of this stuff doesn't even make sense anymore. For example, in Under the Sea, when Sebastian is singing about all of those instruments, I know for a fact that none of that is actually happening anymore. So the hoop plays the hoop, the harp plays the harp, the bass plays the bass, and they sound and sharp. That whole thing, none of those. There are no instruments playing there. It was cute in the cartoon because there were instruments being played which doesn't necessarily make any sense. But in animation, things don't need to make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the fantastical world of animation, is that we get to live these adventures in these worlds that don't exist. So that was part of what made it so cool, was the fact that there were these sea creatures that were actually playing instruments. Here, no, it's just Sebastian spinning around and just singing the song. So, but yet they left the lyrics in. They didn't change them. They just were like, well, everybody knows this song, so we got to keep the lyrics in. But nobody's playing those instruments. So what are we singing about? You know, like, what are we doing? At the same time, it's What it reminds me of, and it's something that we don't talk about a lot, is you open a show on Broadway, right? And you have something. Let's take a show that hasn't, for this example, let's take a show that hasn't closed yet. It's only had its one initial run. So let's talk about Wicked. So Wicked opens, and Wicked gains fans of the original Broadway cast, and then everybody's like, "Oh my God, I love I love Kristen Chenoweth, I love Adina Menzel, I love, I love this musical, I love the original Broadway cast recording." They only make the one original Broadway cast recording. They don't make a new recording for every time they replace the cast after that. However, Wicked has been on Broadway now for 20 years, so. It's not Adina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth. I don't know if you know that, but they got replaced. So new people are in those roles, and people are still going to see Wicked because the story is strong enough, and fans of Wicked go and they keep having new opinions about maybe there's a new Elphaba that they like more than Adina, that does something different or brings a new layer or level. Or there's a new Glinda that they like more than Kristen. So it's this weird thing that Broadway has, this ability that the source material is so strong that people will watch it over and over, but yet they've also accepted the fact that replacement casts can come in and you can have sort of a new favorite. And plenty of people have started off playing Elphaba or Glinda before going on to bigger and better things. So it's also been used as a stepping stone. The roles are considered to be relatively hard, so a lot of people have used it as a jumping off point. Does that diminish the experience of Wicked? I don't know. I mean, the production value is always great. It is, but it is exactly the same show every single time. It's just somebody says a line a little bit differently, or they put a little bit of a spin on a certain part of a song, or it's just simply the timbre of somebody's voice that changes. Whose voice do you like better? Just like with the music you listen to, whose voice do you like better? So I think a lot of that kind of mentality really needs to start applying to these films. If all Disney's going to do is kind of just make the same thing over and over again, then is it talent-based? Is that why we're watching this film? Am I watching this film because I wanted to see Melissa McCarthy's Ursula, or I wanted to see Halle Bailey's interpretation of Ariel? Possible. That I think that's a valid way to look at this, is by continuing to do films like this, you get to see somebody else's interpretation of that character. I think the expectation that every single one of these is going to reinvent the wheel and be absolutely original is not necessarily true. With Beauty and the Beast, I know when I saw that with Emma Watson, I was really disappointed because, first of all, they auto-tuned her voice for the entire film. But secondly, it was a great opportunity for them to do something they hadn't done before, which was blend the music of the animated cartoon with a lot of the amazing music that they use in the Broadway version of Beauty and the Beast, which they didn't do. They have a little moment in the film where they play like Home, but it's just instrumental, and it's very upsetting because it's like they're acknowledging that Home exists, but then they don't use it. And when they announced Little Mermaid, I was really hopeful, especially as we got closer to Little Mermaid, because when Disney had the live action version of Little Mermaid that aired on ABC, they did incorporate some of the Broadway songs, including Eric's song, Her Voice. And I was like, oh, thank God. Maybe they're trying to get people warmed up to this song for the movie. So that way we don't have this weird thing where we rewrite a song that says the exact same thing as a song that's already been written, like we do in Beauty and the Beast, where Evermore is the exact same song as If I Can't Love Her, which was written for the stage musical. So because of that, I was definitely looking forward to Her Voice, and then I found out Her Voice was not in this musical. And I punched a wall and walked away, because Disney keeps doing this thing where they keep having these stage musicals that they refuse to bring the music to the big screen. Why? Because Lin-Manuel Miranda did not do this film any favors. I don't know really what he contributed here, but the new music is the least interesting thing about The Little Mermaid. Eric's new song is actually the best thing of the new music. It's not the best song in the show because it doesn't surpass anything that was written for the original musical. But of the couple of things that they added that are brand new to this show, it is the best song. I will concede that. It was the one that I was like, oh, this is promising. This sounds good. Maybe the rest of the new songs won't be so weird and atrocious. But that's an argument that I think that people are skipping over about musicals, is that oftentimes in any other medium we would see things like replacement casts, and we would see revivals, by the way, that are almost exactly the same, with very little changes. I can think of a really good comparison in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which had an original cast recording and opened, and when it was revived in the 90s, they brought in Andrew Lippa to punch up You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and that was when he added the song that is now sort of ubiquitously known for being a part of the show, My New Philosophy, which was not an original part of the show. It was added in the revival. And it was written pretty much specifically for Kristen Chenoweth by Andrew Lippa. It was a brand new song that was put into a show at a revival stage. And things like this happen all the time in Broadway, where they change something up for the revival. They cut out a song, or they rework the book. They just hired Aaron Sorkin to rework the book for Camelot. So they are making slight alterations, but at the core of these things, they're not really changing the stories. So when you go to live theater, it's basically the same show it was with some slight changes. They might swap out a song or two. Even touring productions will change a song. There was a song that was written specifically for the Newsies touring production that finally gave Crutchy something to do. He has his own solo in the touring production when he didn't in the Broadway production. There's also, for Shrek the Musical, they swap out one of the songs. There's a song that was on Broadway that was not on Broadway, and they swapped it with a completely new song for the touring production. So there are so many cases in which they're doing basically the same thing Disney is doing, which is taking the musical and making a slight alteration to it and putting it back on stage and telling you the reason you're here to watch is because, now we've got Matthew Broderick in How to Succeed, or now we've got Daniel Radcliffe in How to Succeed, or, now Catherine McPhee is starring in Waitress. You've come to see this person do this interpretation of this role. And we didn't really change it up, but we're hoping that you come and see this star. So if we're more honest about that with these versions of these musicals, I think we can all sleep better at night by not being so angry at them and saying that Disney is basically just doing what Broadway would do, which is making some slight alterations, as some revivals have done in the past, and also trying to sell you on the cast, and in a good way, like a revival would when it needs to actually open with somebody. When you need to go see Leah Michele in Funny Girl, you're here to see Halle Bailey in The Little Mermaid. You're here to see Melissa McCarthy in The Little Mermaid instead of Jane Lynch in Funny Girl. So there's so many comparisons here that I can think of that I don't think the YouTube community has really thought about with Little Mermaid. So with that being said, I've come to peace with the fact that Disney is going to continue to not mess with the formula on some of their hits. So to alleviate ourselves of the question of why does this film exist, the question is it any good? Um, and the answer mostly is yes. I actually thought Halle Bailey's interpretation of Ariel was really nice. I really enjoyed her voice. They did not auto-tune the ever-loving hell out of her. She has this weird effect in the new songs, which is gross. And I definitely, if I was in some sort of focus group before this film released, I'd have been like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. We understand it. You do not need to add that effect to her voice to like make it sound like she has songs now that she sings, because I guess we couldn't just let Ariel emote when she loses her voice, so she has to sing her internal thoughts. And she sounds like she's singing inside of a tin cup again. You know what I'm saying? It's like, where is she singing from? And I know that they're doing some sort of effect. They're like, how do we make it sound like she's singing inside her head? And so we don't confuse the audience. It's like, that's not the way to do it. Don't suffer the quality of the actual music just so that you can get away with that. You know, find a different way of making it obvious that this is an internal thought that she's having without having to compromise the actual sound quality, because it sounded awful. It made me really not like her new songs, which actually I don't even think were that bad, because there's one song in here that will absolutely change everything. It changes the game. But I really enjoyed Halle in this film. I thought she was fantastic, and she, if anything, she's lightened her voice to make herself more youthful, more like a princess, more girlish, anything like that, instead of grownish. I got my grownish reference in. And Melissa McCarthy is also fantastic as Ursula. And yes, she owes a lot to the performance that came before her. I have heard a lot of praise given to her performance as being like, oh, Melissa McCarthy makes this performance her own. Not really. She just is actually a lot better than anybody ever thought she probably would be in this role. She's way better than I thought she would be in this role. It's easily one of her best performances, I think, in anything. But yeah, she did not reinvent this role. She owes so much of this to what was originally brought in by Pat in the cartoon, that it's does she make a couple little choices that are slightly, sure, but the film also writes a couple things for her that didn't exist, you know. She didn't rewrite Ursula. This isn't like a brand new Ursula. It still feels very much inspired by, but it is a really good performance. I liked it. I also really like Jonah Hauer-King. I don't know who voiced the original Eric. I don't know that it really mattered, because Eric in the first film almost seems like an afterthought. Sometimes it was all about the Disney princesses, and even though I think girls were like, oh, the prince is cute, like, the princess didn't do much in some of these films. The prince in like Cinderella doesn't really do anything. Sleeping Beauty doesn't really do anything. Snow White doesn't really do anything. So like, they were like, why does Eric need to do anything? Well, when you give Eric stuff to do, it really fleshes out the story. So here they actually give Eric a storyline. He actually is almost like a land version of Ariel, you know, who really wants to burst out, and he's fascinated with the underwater world, and with the world, with the ocean and the sea, and you know, that's what his song is about. And he's incredibly charming, and I hope Jonah Hauer-King continues to get hired, because I loved him. I thought he was a great addition to this film. It's definitely a breakout performance. I think of the cast members, he's the least known. So I really hope this is a breakout performance for him, because I really enjoyed his Eric. Lovely voice, great casting. And all around, I was super happy with that. Daveed Diggs does a solid job of impersonating Sebastian. That's all I'll say about that. It feels exactly the same. It feels like we just got the guy who originally played Sebastian to do it again. Just, it doesn't feel like we move the needle a whole lot. Jacob Tremblay as Flounder. I know Flounder for a lot of people is like a favorite Disney character. In here, I know he looks horrific because, he's not the cute little bright yellow fish that he is in the cartoon. They also, there's a moment where he's out of water and he's not concerned at all. Like, he's flopping on the deck of his ship, and Jacob's performance is just like, he's just talking normally, almost like nobody ever gave him direction, like, by the way, you're gasping for air. And that kind of did bother me, but I don't know if he was told the context in which those words were being said, because he just kind of speaks them regularly. There's no sense of urgency or, like, please get me back into the water, because essentially, he can't breathe. He can't stay out of the water forever. He's choking. He should not be able to carry on a conversation in this moment. But I guess they found that distressing. I don't know what the choice was there, but it's very hard for me to think about why. But Jacob doesn't do a whole lot in this film. Actually, he disappears for like the last half of it. I don't even remember when the last time was he appeared. I don't even know if Ariel said goodbye to him. When was Flounder last seen in this film? Was it in... Damn, when was it? I really, truly have no idea the last time I'm thinking about it. I was like, is he even in the last half of the movie? I think he just... No, I don't think he is. I have no idea when the last time was I saw Flounder. Like, there's no great goodbye. There's just like, yeah, peace out. I'm going back to the human world now. Where's Flounder? I don't know. He didn't want to come. All right. Anyway, and then we have Aquafina needs to say no to things. Scuttle, when you look at the Scuttle in the cartoon as an interpretation, Scuttle was an idiot who had an obnoxious voice. And if I was Aquafina and I was being offered Scuttle, and they were telling me not to do anything with my voice, they were like, no, your voice, as is fine. That's why we're asking you, Aquafina, to do this role. I would be like, no, thank you. This is offensive. Goodbye. You know what I'm saying? Like, they think that just her as herself, making no alterations to the way she speaks, is annoying, obnoxious, and stupid, and makes for a great Scuttle. I don't know why she said yes to this role, because she's not doing anything different. She's just being Aquafina. If anything, for those of us who might have, small attention spans, it's almost like, wait a minute, is that The Last Dragon? Is that why is she in this film? She's already voiced for Disney before. And then to top it all off, her song, Scuttlebutt, I think it's the worst Disney song I've ever heard. And I don't mean that to like stir up a pot and like have a conversation and be like, oh, well, wow, he's exaggerating. I really can't think of a Disney song I hate more than Scuttlebutt. I'm having a hard time. Drop some in the comments to try to remind me and be like, but do you remember this song? Do you remember this song? Do you remember? No. I've gone through like a ton of the Disney musicals in my head. I can't find a song where I'm like, yeah, that was worse. Scuttlebutt, I think, is the worst song ever in a Disney film. I actually joked about it on my own Facebook timeline after I watched the film, and I said, great, now that The Little Mermaid is on Disney Plus, they can release The Little Mermaid director's cut, which will just be Rob Marshall removing Scuttlebutt from the film. That's it. That's all he really needs to do. It'll instantly improve the movie. It doesn't sound like anything else in the film. It does sound like the Lin-Manuel Miranda song. It sounds like this is what they paid him the money for, and he wrote, it's the worst song of his career. It's the worst song ever in a Disney film. It's the worst song of the year. Like, I think it's possible that the Razzies will add a new category just to honor Scuttlebutt with the worst of the year. It's an atrocious song. It's absolutely unnecessary. It doesn't even, thank God it doesn't last that long. The song's only like maybe a little over a minute. But oh my God, it is the least necessary thing, and it is so terrible. Just I have words. I could have another review just about Scuttlebutt and all of the reasons why that song is obnoxious and terrible. I'm sure there's like a 5-year-old out there that thought it was like the bomb, and is annoying their parents with it right now. And just keeps going, Scuttlebutt, Scuttlebutt, I've got Scuttlebutt. It's like, oh, my child would never watch this movie again. It would just disappear. Where's the Little Mermaid? I don't know. Disney, they pulled it. It's gone. Anything to get you to stop singing that fucking song. Anyway, yeah, it's an awful song, and it deserves to die, burn in song hell, with, I don't know, what are the other worst songs of all time? Just put it down there. The other problem, and this is weird. This is weird for me too. Javier Bardem is awful in this. Truthfully, I just think he's miscast. But oh my God. Like, oh my God. Not only does he not have any chemistry with anybody he comes into contact with the entire film, he doesn't have the gravitas of animated King Triton. Animated King Triton is not even real, and he has more gravitas than Javier Bardem. Javier Bardem walks into scenes like he just woke up. He's, no matter what it is, if he's mad at Ariel, if he's mad at Ursula, if he's sad about his daughter, everything, it's just like, Ariel, you will listen to me now. You belong here. Stay away from the humans. Do not go above land anymore. I'm like, what is happening? What is going on with Javier Bardem? It's like I would have fired him if I was Rob Marshall and just been like, I have to have somebody else in this role. I mean, it was a great concept. The dude is an Academy Award winning actor. I think Javier Bardem is fantastic. And normally he's the kind of actor that I would say, dude, you can put him in anything and he's going to make a film better. He proved me wrong here. I don't know if he hated being in the film. I don't know if he didn't understand what King Triton was. I don't know if Rob Marshall's direction for Javier Bardem was awful. I have no idea what happened, but he is the worst part about this film. Awkwafina, actually, as Scuttle, works better, aside from the song, than Javier Bardem's entire performance as Triton. He has literally no chemistry with anybody. He never seems like he cares, or when he raises his voice, there's no grit behind it. There's no anger, there's no rage, there's no intention. It's just sort of like he just gets kind of louder than he was. So instead of being like this weird sort of, hey, Ariel, what are you doing? He becomes more like, Ariel, what are you doing? You will listen to me. It's easily one of the worst performances I've seen this year. Like, because everything else around it is either works or is actually really good. Like, there isn't a single person in this cast where I was like, yeah, nah, that didn't work for me. Except him. Like, It's he's terrible. Sorry, I heart Javier Bardem. I think he's one of the strongest actors working. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know what he. I think he wanted to be fired from set, and they never did. I think he was trying to be fired from this film, and they never fired him. He probably saw a paycheck and was like, "Oh, The Little Mermaid. Oh, Rob Marshall. He did a great job with Chicago. This should be fun." And then he got in there, and they started putting him in like this thing, and he was in front of a green screen, and he was like, "Fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore. I bet if I just act really terribly, they'll fire me." And then they didn't. And now this performance is out there for the rest of his life, representing his acting abilities. So now he becomes the actor who phones it in. Because there's so many other actors who don't, who are great actors no matter what film they're in, they never phone it in. Well, now I know Javier Bardem phones it in. Congratulations, Javier. You proved it to me that when you're put into a film you don't want to be in, you have a way of letting us know that you don't want to be there. I heard you loud and clear. So, yes, lots of different problems, lots of different thoughts about this film. I thought the audio description for this was really good in general. I thought what was interesting about the film is that one of the arguments that was made, because people are racist, was, Ariel's white. She's a mermaid. It's a character, it's a thing that doesn't actually exist. People are white. Mermaids could be anything. Mermaids could be blue. Mermaids could be purple. They could be orange. They could be whatever they want because they don't fucking exist. I know that people don't realize this. But it's a really hard concept for some people. They're like, Ariel's white and she has red hair and I don't understand what's going on. My life has been turned upside down. And through that, on the other side, there isn't like a big sort of to-do about any of the cast members and their race, because the argument is in fact that mermaids can be anything that they are. They can be any color. They can be whatever. Maybe there was a blue mermaid. I don't know. But these are not real things. These are not real creatures. They also did this thing where they cut out some songs too. So the Daughters of Triton never do anything. They have some dialogue and that's it. Her sisters are just, they never sing. That whole thing is gone from the animated movie, and they didn't import the song for the Broadway musical either. So they barely exist. We learn their names, and that's the extent of how they're in the film. But it's not like they went through and described each one, and they were like, this one's the Asian one, and this one is the Latino one, and this one is the white one, and this one is... No, they didn't do that. They were just like, yeah, she's got some mermaid sisters of whatever quality, because they're mermaids. So is it really a race thing for them? I don't know. It's more like a skin shading, probably, based on how you are in the ocean and what chemicals are in the ocean. What's your food diet? A lot of these fish are colored based on what they eat in the ocean. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's actually like a lot of the, like, flamingos are pink for a reason. It's because of what they eat from the ocean. So they could be anything. So that was passed over, and I accept that. Like, I take that and I'm like, okay, so yes, this film is not about race. It should never have been about race. It's just about intentional casting and picking the right person for the role, picking somebody exciting and new who will bring something different to the role of Ariel. And I think that's exactly what Halle Bailey did. She brought something interesting and fun to Ariel and did a good job of doing it in a live action film. So I don't think it really matters whether she was white, black, purple, or alien. None of that really matters. It was about her performance. Because if she had been anything and not done it well, it wouldn't have mattered. You know, the worst thing that you would want is to try to do a representation thing and then have it fail, and then pick the wrong person, and you're just like forcing representation, and then the performance doesn't work. But Hallie is perfect for Ariel. She was delightful. Um, and I like that the audio description is just like, these are the characters, these are the ones in the film. It does, you know, I mean, it lets you know that these are, you know, Sebastian's a crab and Flounder's a flounder. Crabs name themselves. Flounders just call themselves after what they are. Um, and I think the scene where I really enjoyed the audio description the most was probably the final battle, because conceptually that was always the thing that I thought was going to be the hardest for them to pull off, was when Ursula becomes giant Ursula and they have to fight her. I was having seen the original animated cartoon and then not being able to see this version. That was the one where I was like, how is this just gonna be like a giant Melissa McCarthy? Like, you know, so, I'm like, oh my god. But no, they go through the whole process of her growing 10 times her original size, being above water and using her tentacles, and it felt very much like the battle from the original, and you know, with the ship with the really pointy front that they use ultimately to defeat her, I thought was really good. So many little things throughout the film. I love when Ursula comes to land as the beautiful temptress with the thing around her. I love that she's described as raven-haired. I love little things like that. Whenever you can add a little extra thing into the audio description right before you describe somebody, it gives me like an extra thing. Instead of there just being a girl, I now know it's a raven-haired girl, or I know it's a tall girl, or I know it's a plus-size girl, or I know it's an old lady, or whatever it is. And it's something that is that is definitive, and it's not something that is interpretive. Avoid using terms like pretty, because that's subjective. If you think somebody is pretty, you should be able to tell me why you think they're pretty, and use those words in the adjectives instead, and let me make up my own mind as to whether or not somebody is pretty, because not everybody thinks the same people are pretty. We don't all agree. Even if we could all see, even if you just snapped your fingers and all the blind people woke up and we were all like, oh my god, I can see everybody now. Now we can all analyze people evenly based on their attractiveness. It's not like we're all going to be like, yep, we all agree cohesively as a blind unit, that person is attractive. Thank you. There'll be some people who'll be like, I don't know, this doesn't really do anything for me. I guess she's all right. You know, not a big fan, but you know, I wouldn't have necessarily said pretty. I think there are prettier people. You know, so it's a subjective thing. So describe the person and let the person make up their own mind as to whether or not somebody's pretty. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Even if we're blind, it's still in the eye of the beholder. So, yeah, I thought that they did that really well too. It's a really solid thing. There's some descriptions with Triton too. We find out that he's got the long gray hair, sort of like Triton did in the original cartoon, and I love the part, because I even remember it in the cartoon. There's a little part that, although Javier Bardem is just so awful in this film, that even his final goodbye to Ariel is just like, it's just like it loses all effect, because it feels like he has no connection with Ariel. you know. But he does do that little thing where he like lifts himself up slightly to say goodbye to her. Like he rises in the water, and then he swims over to her, and I even kind of remember, because I've seen The Little Mermaid, I don't even know how many times, as a kid slash adult, the animated version. There's a little part where you can actually see the animated cartoon, and he does kind of like lift himself up a little bit and rise up out of the water for her to say goodbye. So, um, yeah, and that they kept that, and that's in the audio description. So there's there's a lot that works here. I in Kiss the Girl, it introduced us to how those instruments are being played. Let us know about the crickets that he's using, and instead of, because in Under the Sea, we just don't know, because you can't do narration over the song. I'm sorry. I know that there's like, every once in a while I run into somebody who's like, I don't care about the music. I want to know what's going on during the music. And it's like, I don't want things talking on top of my song lyrics. I definitely was sitting there singing along. You know what I'm saying? Like I was watching it by myself, so I could just sit here and I was like, part of the world. I was right along with her. So I was singing Under the Sea. I mean, yeah, I didn't want that ruined. I really didn't care what was happening on screen during those moments. Not nearly as much as I cared about that song. So this has some of the most memorable music of any of the Disney musicals that have definitely stood the test of time. So yeah, please don't interrupt Under the Sea with, I don't know, Sebastian and Ariel floating around. Like, I don't care. I like Under the Sea, so that's the right decision to make. But anytime you do have a break in the music, when they're not singing, I love that we get maybe like a little 2-second, like a Sebastian and Ariel spin, something like that. Yeah, those are great, because it reminds us of sort of like what's happening, that visually things are happening. So, and that's exactly what this description does, is it uses every moment that it can. There was nothing where I was like, oh, I don't know what's happening here. There was a moment where I thought we weren't going to come back to it, and it was just because of the way that the film was structured. But there's a moment when Ariel gets saved from the ocean. Instead of, in this version, I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, in this version, instead of them bringing Ariel to the beach, she gets caught in a net along with Sebastian and Flounder, and this fisherman pulls him on board, and he's like, oh my god, I just picked up a girl. What? She's naked, I have to go get her clothes. So while he runs and gets her clothes, meanwhile I'm sitting there thinking, Ariel, you have a fish on deck with you. You need to get Flounder back into the ocean. Ariel, get your shit together. Get them back in the ocean. So, yeah, I was kind of wondering if we were going to come back around, but we did eventually. It was just the way the scene was structured. Flounder was on deck for a little while longer than I was comfortable with. I was like, are we ever going to come back to Flounder? Is anybody going to save him? No wonder he doesn't come back for the rest of the film. Like, no wonder he's gone. Because he's like, damn that girl, she left me on deck for way too long. I was dying up there. Yeah, so that was the only time where I was like, please tell what is happening with Flounder. He can't breathe. But it was just a poorly written scene. Anyway, I generally I like this more than I thought I would. But at the end of the day, there's one thing that's going to ring true, and it's not as good as the cartoon. I'm sorry, it's not. If I had a chance to show somebody one or the other, I would still show them the cartoon. The cartoon is tighter. The cartoon really enjoys its fancifulness a lot more. Um, you don't have to watch somebody interpreting somebody else's performance. Instead, you're watching the original performance that inspires the later performances. So, like, I can't think of a solid reason why I would tell anybody to watch the live action over the cartoon. And that's just a preference thing. Just like with any sort of Broadway revival that may be done, maybe the revival cast wasn't as good as the original cast. You know, maybe you like the original cast still the best. And that's totally valid. So I think that's exactly what we have here is, and sadly, the revival cast of The Little Mermaid didn't do enough to sell me away from the original cast. Plus, this movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long. It's almost a full hour longer than the original film. And I don't know why. I don't know what the thought process was. I don't know what Rob Marshall was thinking. But this film is still made for families and kids. And getting little kids to sit there for 2 hours and 15 minutes can be a chore. So films like this should never break 2 hours. Removing Scuttlebutt alone would save you time. And I don't know. I'm sure there's easily cuttable stuff in the rest of the film. But it's weird that we remove songs from the original cartoon and yet we still managed to run like almost an extra hour. I baffled. It's baffling. There's no Le Poussin because that would be a nightmare. And it's just, yeah, we got what we got. But overall, I think this film has been dumped on sort of unfairly because these are good performances, except Javier Bardem. And Aquafina's rap in this song in this show is atrocious. All of that being said, is it my favorite Disney live action? No. But I've just seen so many people beating the ever-loving crap out of this film on the internet that it's just really not worth it. Just think about it like you're going to see Wicked and you didn't get to see the original cast. But guess what? The new people in the show, they're fantastic as well. And the show still holds up. So you still got to have a great experience. Don't just be defeated because it smells so much like the original, you know? But also, my other offering to Disney would be take the risk sometimes. Do not always just regurgitate the exact same film onto the screen every single time. I think if you can be inventive and you can continue to do things like Maleficent and Cruella, what you could get is a Wicked. Wicked only exists because somebody looked at The Wizard of Oz and said, what can we do differently? How can we interpret this franchise differently than we did before? So if nobody had done that, we wouldn't have Wicked to even enjoy future casts and future Elphabas. So take that risk, come up with a new interpretation, and change it up every once in a while. But if you don't want to change it up, I understand it. Broadway doesn't want to change it up either. And there is a Broadway version of this show, so talking about it as that is quite valid. Anyway, this is a long review, but I said I had a lot to say about this film. I don't even know if you're still here. You probably left. After all that, I'm going to give The Little Mermaid a B. I'm quite surprised I gave it a B. I didn't think I was going to. I kind of believed the hype against this film, but I don't. It's not there. There are a couple things that don't work, and when they really don't work, they really don't work. But for the most part, I just felt like I went and saw a Broadway show that had been running for years and was good, and I just got to see new actors interpret those roles, and now I can compare them to the original cast and think, and be like, oh, well, did they live up to the original? Was it, how did it sound? Did I like their voices is better or worse, or what little changes did they make? I can make those kind of analyzations the same way I would with a Broadway musical. So I didn't really have the big of a problem, but um, whatever blackmail somebody had on Javier Bardem was not worth putting him in this film. Um, any other actor would have been right for this film. And you can't say it's a diversity thing, because it's not like there aren't other actors of color that could have easily been in his role. Any of them would have. Antonio Banderas, where was he? That dude can sing. Not that he needs to, because King Triton doesn't sing, because they didn't give him a song, but he can. And maybe if they had him, they would have written him a song. That's it. I'm done. This review is behind me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Please continue to subscribe. I'm trying to break 200 subscribers this year. I'll get there, but I need your support. I have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can go to Twitter, Instagram, or Threads and follow me at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. And it'll let you know more about Michelle Deco and what other things she's narrated before. That's it for me today. I will review something else for you guys. And I will see you under the sea.